All right, guys, welcome back. I've got an urgent video for you after Ethereum pumping 600 bucks in a day, nearly 20% on the day, and now 12% away from a new all-time high. I really do mean that this is urgent in the sense of the abnormalities that we are seeing in the chart right now. And this goes for Bitcoin as well. It's under 4% away from a new all-time high, so roughly 2.5K away from hitting a new all-time high price. Yesterday, it did 5,200 bucks in the day, open to close, and nearly 8% move. So I'm going to get into that in today's video. Thanks again for joining me here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to all the returning viewers as well. You guys have been here throughout the quiet cricket times, so much appreciated to you guys, especially hitting that like button and helping us beat that YouTube algorithm, or essentially the YouTube audience, where we don't have to go through the crazy nonsense titles and nonsense thumbnails. Smash it up. Let's go. 4,000 likes a day. Let's kick it straight off with Bitcoin, and then I'll get into the traditional markets as we are seeing a lot of new all-time highs. Inflation, relatively okay, but the interest rates belief is still that they're going to be cut. I think there is going to be a lot of heartache around that in just a moment. So I'll just talk to you about that after we get through BTC. Looking at the old urgent call here, abnormal bars like today, especially after straight up, just looking at history, typically signal that something is changing. That could be that we're coming towards the end of a move. Hold your horses. It could just be a short-term move. We're just looking at the short term here. Overall, I still think things are relatively bullish, and we had a few little bullish signals at the lows. These bars will typically come towards end of moves. Now, there might be another day or two of pretty significant move to the upside. That's just looking at the short term. We're just looking at the daily here. So in terms of the urgency here, what I've noticed over the last 24 hours is now a lot of questions from people saying, is now the time to be buying? Should we be buying Ethereum? Should we be getting into Ethereum ecosystem altcoins? The urgency there is don't do it now. Do it when the markets are down and no one's talking about it. Do it when the prices are around the lows if you need to transition your portfolio into a stronger portfolio. Now, I'm going to go into altcoins later in the video, looking at the strong altcoins, looking at what something that would typically be weak, what that also looks like on a chart, so you can avoid the crap and get into the stronger altcoins, whatever they may be. Next, we look for the targets to the upsides, the next resistance levels. You have that fake out price of 72,800 and the all-time high at 73,800. So two more minor levels there to watch for any sort of resistance levels coming up for BTC. Now, if that is to occur, if we are to see any sort of hits at those levels, I'd still be medium-term, long-term bullish, medium and long-term bullish, even if there was a correction here back down anywhere above sort of 65K, providing that 73,800, 74,000 top remains intact. So if you've still got this top here and you see a correction, anything above the 50% level at 65K is still strong. That's just a correction, and then you might see some more consolidation. Remember, this 50% tool here, we're looking at this top down to this low, slice through the middle. This is strong above, this is weak below. As simple as it can be, that's it. So we've got those levels there, just looking at those prices now. So any of those sort of corrections, provided it remains above 50%, that's when I would start to look at more altcoins. That's when I would start to look at, if I didn't have a position in Bitcoin or I wanted to get more of a position, that would be a safer entry for a bigger position there, because you're still in the strong half. Invalidation, breaking below, and you'd have to think about what you do about your stops at that point. Remember, I don't know what's going to happen on the black side. I just look at probabilities to the upside, probabilities to the downside, and assess my risk based on that. Now, that's a look at price for BTC. In terms of time, 68 days below the previous old all-time high. This is what we talked about just over 2 months ago with the 3 days down signal. That signal occurred right here, 3 days down. You had 3 lower highs, lower lows. Very, very important rule when it comes to tops and bottoms in the market. You could have 3 days up as well. And that signal was also here at the low, 1, 2, 3 days up. You can find that on the Gann swing indicator. Turning on the settings here and then going to inputs, scrolling down and show bar type. And you'll see 3 green triangles to the upside here. 1, 2, 3. And it gives you that signal to let you know that there is a high chance that we may have seen the bottom come into the market, especially after a prolonged move. Now, you can learn more about this with the TIA Gann Swing Indicator or with TIA Premium. There is a sale coming up in the next 7 days. Subscribe to the TIA report. Link is in the top of the video description here, and you'll be notified when that sale comes out. You may have been familiar with this wave pattern that Michael's using on his channel. Just looking at the Elliott wave structure of the Bitcoin price, you've got the low, wave 1, the top here, wave 2. So wave 2 is a correction, wave 3, and potentially we've seen the bottom of wave 4 come in right now, which means we'll be in that final stage into that final top. Where does that price come in? Where does the time frame come in? Anyone's guess right now. All we're looking at is the possibility that we're going into one of these final phases for BTC, which could end up being one of the biggest moves to the upside that we see. So we'll continue to follow that up on the channel. But for now, let's have a look at what's going on in the traditional space, traditional finance, before I get over to ETH and some of those altcoins. So a quick recap of what's happened over the last few days. We've got FOMC meeting minutes coming up from the US, a couple of unemployment announcements, manufacturing, services, etc. So nothing too huge to come out this week. We saw a bit of that last week. In terms of the interest rates, the market still is thinking that we're going to see a cut in September. Looking at this blue number here and the number up here. So it's currently at 5.5% interest rates in the US, and they're thinking we're going to see a cut and then a cut again in December. So 2 cuts this year. We almost got back to no cuts for a period of time, and now we're seeing 2 cuts again. I think this, again, is probably not going to happen based on what we're seeing with the stock markets and with commodities. Prices are at new all-time highs, new all-time high daily closes across the board, sometimes even new all-time high daily prices across the board. The US and the biggest economies around the world, we're even seeing new all-time high prices for gold. I'll get to that in just a second. So while prices are going up, if they're to cut interest rates, that could lead to even more higher prices. You can see like an escalation of prices going up because there is now more money in the system. The interest rates are supposed to curb inflation, higher prices. And while, for whatever reason, people are thinking we're going to get cuts, I think we're still going to see higher prices. And this is going to take some time for people to actually start to believe that there is not going to be a cut, and it's either going to pause or there might be an interest rate hike. It might even take the Fed an interest rate hike to squash the belief of any sort of cuts in this type of environment. New all-time highs. Did we get it? Just a couple of ticks off a new all-time high price, but we got a new all-time high daily close for the S&P. For the NASDAQ, a new all-time high daily close and a new all-time high daily price. For the Dow Jones, we got a new all-time high price, but not a new all-time high daily close. That was above the March tops. But if we take a look at the futures contract here, the minis, that is, it wasn't a new all-time high price, but it's still trading around those tops. We can take a look at the top 50 in Europe, getting very close to new fresh highs again. The UK, new all-time high price last week, still trading around those tops. Germany, still trading around those tops. We can get rid of this now because it's basically catapulted away from those lows. France, still trading around those tops as well. And the big one, the second biggest economy in the world, China, still going on its 5-month run to the upside. So a 5-month move to the upside. Looking at commodities, oil trading around the 50% level here. So it's still holding up relatively well, even though there's some bearish news out there. We're also seeing altcoins pop off again. Now, with all still trading around the 50% level, that is still showing signs of support. That's around $77. I've seen quite a few articles coming out saying that, well, with oil down, this is just a bad thing for the economy. Typically when oil's down, the rest of the economy's down, so on and so forth. But I don't think they understand anything about the 50% level. They're really just looking at the last few weeks where the market has been down. But so far, it's holding out above those levels. It's not really affecting what's going on in the broader sense. You're still seeing high asset prices across stock markets, real estate, and of course now with the last couple of days, Bitcoin as well. Gold, new all-time high prices, new all-time high daily close. Silver, new fresh highs, new fresh high daily closes, and copper, one of the big commodities used in the economy. Remember, copper is in basically everything that we use electronically as well, our piping, everything like that. New all-time high daily close and all-time high price. So with all that in mind, I don't understand how anyone can think that we're going to see interest rate cuts. I'm happy to be wrong. It's going to be helpful for any of the mortgages that we have out there as well. But you tell me how that's going to be possible, and we'll let the rest play out in history. All right, on to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptos again. Now, with it pumping to nearly $72,000 while I'm recording this video, it could well happen in this 10 months. So I'm keeping a lookout for how this is starting to react at those peaks and whether we do see any other pullbacks back underneath those all-time highs. As I said earlier, I think as long as it stays above its 50% level, even if it does push to a new high, then we're still in a stronger play here. Quick mention to the video that I did last week, looking at the price prediction here. So Bitcoin's price prediction for the end of the cycle. Daily Hodl's done a little article here on it as well, but I'll leave a link to this at the end of this video if you want to get a recap of the of my price predictions for the stock markets, for the US stock markets, and of course for BTC. Now, in terms of the Google Trends, we're also seeing a plateau here for the interest coming in for Bitcoin worldwide. You can see we're dropping out here to around 20. So we've seen that happen before. A drop out of interest doesn't mean the price can't go up. We're just not seeing the retail come back into the market, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We typically see them at the peaks, as we did yet again in March at $74,000. They, for whatever reason, every single time comes to the peak. Everyone's talking about it. The price doesn't go up anymore, and then they all just leave. You can see it. It just there on the chart. It's like, objectively speaking, it's right there. And I dare say they'll do it again. It's happened throughout history. I don't know why it would change this time. Just in, SEC asks exchanges to update their 19B4 filings on an accelerated basis for spot Ethereum ETFs. Now, just last week, I was looking at the betting market for an Ethereum ETF, and it had dropped down to 10% yes, that there was going to be an Ethereum ETF, and it was about 90% no. This, of course, has now flipped that betting market, but of course, we'll just have to wait and see whenever these things actually come out. This is, of course, affecting the price of Ethereum, the news, and these abnormal moves, as I suggested at the beginning of the video, are not great in that sort of short to medium term. If you're trading just off the news on an hourly chart, you're probably making bank if you know what you're doing. But if you're trying to buy in on these moves that have already happened, maybe you've got a little bit further to go to the upside. But what happens almost every single time is that the news comes out, people are now interested in understanding more about the particular crypto, and then they basically buy in at the peaks. Remember, we just had that in January of this year, 2024. This was the Ethereum ETF. I don't know what you would want to call it, a rumor. When Bitcoin's ETF was announced, Ethereum also went up and then it corrected. Yes, we still got that move up into the peak, but the correction came again and was just slightly higher than the rumor news before. So you can still see these sorts of moves happen, and then typically we'll get a correction. Who knows? After this time here, we just shoot straight up, and you can come back and screenshot this and post it everywhere you want. So we're looking at Ethereum now on the price chart here and the swing chart. We've got higher lows forming on the 50% level. We've got a higher low just before that breakout move, and that's essentially, I guess, what's happened. We've broken through the 50% level, and now the market is still just trying to play catch up, whether we do see it a little further up or we come back to test some of the accumulation zone. 3,200 points, that's where this white line comes in, or back to the 50% around 3,400 points. So it's not to say that this was potentially not the low, it's just the move out of the low zone is so abnormal that it just swings the probabilities in the favor of maybe that we're going to see a bit of a pause, or at worst, a bit of a correction because of how abnormal that move was. The best thing that can happen, here's your up, down, sideways, is that, the market just shoots up and then finds a higher low base to begin forming a consolidation before the next move. So far, that's what we got on Ethereum. It was up 20%, well, nearly 20% on the day. And so far, trying to test that $3,700 level. Now, the altcoins. And if you guys are interested in learning more about trading and how to implement this for your own strategies, TIA Premium, as I said, there's a sale coming up in the next 7 days. A link to this is in the top of the video description. Make sure you sign up to the report and you'll be notified when the sale is on. And you can start to join some of our members in TIA Premium, smashing their gains here. Short of the market, long of the market. They are learning how to implement their own strategies into their trading plans. And you can read it for yourself here in Trading Results. So these are the free public access Discord, so you can see what people are actually doing when it comes to trading using gain analysis and how they're creating their own plans and finding ways to trade this across basically all crypto markets. And in some cases, some are even getting into commodities and stocks as well. And a lovely example here of not understanding the trend and then figuring out how that works. Paying a premium to wait for that confirmation will increase the probabilities of that trade. But if you're trying to catch a falling knife, you might get a higher reward, but it's also higher risk. So well done to Polkadot Fanboy and the dozens of other guys who are posting their results here. So thanks very much to everyone that's doing that. I hope you guys are also winning. So whether you're with TIA Premium or doing your own thing, I hope you guys are finding big ways to make massive gains while the markets are warm and hot. All right, so onto Ethereum BTC. Again, back to the title of the video, the urgent warning here. Ethereum Bitcoin is still under the 50% level. So we've seen this pump up. ETH USD looks great. You've got a nice 20% bounce here on the US dollar pair. But when you go over to ETHBTC, it's still below the 50% level at 5.2 million Satoshis. And of this particular range here at 5.3 million Satoshis. So it's got a bit of work to do to get back above that resistance. You can see it's hit it once, hit it twice, and now, even in the last few hours on the close, it's hit it a third time. So do we see a breakout or do we see a breakdown? Obviously, anyone's guess here. We've got the resistance there at 5.3 to the upper side. A close above that and consolidation, that is the first strong signal that ETH can consolidate to push and get to the next resistance level at 6 million Satoshis. So this has been the zone that I've been watching over the last several months now, going back to October as a possible low in the market, possible low forming for ETHBTC. Over the course of March and April and May, it's broken down underneath that level. However, if this is the pump to get it back above, then this is also going to pump up. ETH USD will also pump up. I know I've spent a fair chunk of the video talking about how these abnormal bars typically lead to some sort of pause or correction. But this, to me, in my analysis, would be the confirming signal that we're going to see further upside for Ethereum versus US dollar. The break above 5.3 million Satoshis, you can see the resistance over the course of time here over the last several months. That would be a very strong sign that would invalidate the downside after this abnormal bar. So that's very high on my watch list. I've got my alerts set. Let's see what happens to ETHBTC over the coming days. Now onto altcoins. And this fractal is something I've been watching now for some time. You've seen it on the channel, looking at the quarter 3, quarter 4 of 2020, how we saw this a higher low formation and then a breakout, and basically the altcoin market went absolutely nuts. We saw the death of crypto last month in April, where basically everything went really quiet and we had that big low form on the 13th of April. And now after the death, we're seeing the rebirth with higher lows forming in the market. Of course, it's just a fractal at the end of the day. I don't know if this thing is going to play out exactly to the plan here. But so far, so good. It's been working like that. The main thing I'm looking at, of course, are the resistance levels and the higher lows, and a look at which altcoins are getting stronger over the others. Which ones are going to be the leaders in this next move to the upside? Just how clear that 50% was, even before it came in. Now, that's another story for another day. But you've got the top here in April, top here in May, and then the breakout yesterday above that 50%. So again, let's go for 3 daily closes as per the rule above the 50% level to see if there's going to be some strength forming here for the market to head higher. Now, strong and weak altcoins. You might have a few in your bags already. A look at a weak altcoin in the face of overall strength against its Bitcoin pairing, drum roll please, the weak stuff looks like this. Forget the name up here. I'm not going to mention it again. You can see how it just keeps failing over and over and over again against its BTC value. The odd day you see it up, and then the rest of the time is spent falling. There is more time spent falling than going up. And on those up days, you get a quick flurry of excitement, and then it basically fades out the rest of the time. That is what a weak altcoin looks like. That's the chart of a weak altcoin. And there are many of them in my list on this side here. Some of them might make it out into the strong side, but for now, this is basically the weakest altcoins that we can see out there in the market. Some of them might even be fantastic projects, but they're just not stuff that I want to put my money with because they just keep getting weaker and weaker. Now, for some of the simple strength that we can see on the charts, this one does a reasonably good job at showing some strength. It's broken past the first confirmation. This is what we've had on the chart here for many weeks now. And the next confirmation was hit resistance there, and it was the 50% at this number, so 260,000, and we've just had one day above that particular level. So this is showing signs of strength along with a strong market as opposed to a weak chart that just keeps going down against its Bitcoin value. It might be going up a little bit against USD, but it keeps falling against BTC. This is a strong chart. Something else that is still looking relatively strong, higher lows, it's below the 50% at this point. So you can see that the Solana chart was stronger than this, but for now it's still above this major 50% at about 1,700 Satoshis. So you really want to see the market get above 1,900 Satoshis and consolidate above that level to then come up and test that previous top. So those are looking relatively good. Sol USD also looking pretty good, getting above the $175 level and then closing in on 190 again. So getting back to these previous tops. It's done its 43% move to the downside, and that's been its largest equal move that it did back in July as well. It did 46% down, did 37% down, now it's done 43% down. So it seems on par with the corrections that it's been doing in this bull market. Another one here. The thing I like about this is it's bounced off the 50%. Now it's come up and hit the next 50% level of the bear market range or the correction range. So it needs to do a little work now to get back above 8,550 Satoshis, and that's going to put it back into that stronger half of the Pendle BTC chart. Go through your altcoin list, look for stuff that is showing strength in the face of overall strength. If you find stuff that is looking weak in the face of strength, then the probabilities are probably likely that it's not going to continue showing strength. It could, don't get me wrong, it could, but I'd rather throw the probabilities in my favor as opposed to hoping that one day it does something based on something else. All of these ifs, thens, and buts. What there is no if, thens, or buts is a new video, and I'll be back here tomorrow for another video. There is a lot of cryptos popping off here that are just still breaking their swing tops. So I've got to go. I'll see you guys at the next video. Do remember that we've got the sale coming up for TIA Premium. Get your crypto trading on track before the next big pump. And yes, I do love these ridiculous returns, rich 2,000% returns. All right, guys, that's enough for me. I'll see you at the next one. Till then, take care and peace out.